Imagine it. 10 years. 10 whole years. Just stuck. Frozen in that one awful moment where everything changed. Not even a death, but a vanishing. Your bright, wonderful 15-year-old daughter, Ellie Mack, walks to the library and just doesn't come back. It's the chilling heart of the book we're diving into today. Lisa Jules, and she was gone. And we're not just recapping a thriller plot here. We want to look at the psychology, the trauma, and how the truth, no matter how dark it is, sometimes has to come out.
Exactly. Our mission isn't just summary. We're digging into what this story really tells us about grief, about obsession, and especially about motherhood and identity when loss is just ambiguous. Because for Laurel Mack, Ellie's mother, those 10 years weren't about healing. They were about being completely stuck, paralyzed.
And that paralysis is where we start. The police hit dead ends almost right away. No clues, no body, nothing. The sources describe Laurel a decade later as basically a shell of her former self. Her marriage fell apart. Her whole life just became about this huge emptiness Ellie left, a total failure of closure.
And it's critical to see that the not knowing is the real antagonist here, initially anyway. Laurel couldn't properly grieve because she didn't know what she was grieving. Was Ellie alive somewhere? Was she gone forever? It wasn't just sadness. It was like her whole mind was suspended, waiting for an answer that never came.
Okay, so let's then talk about this sudden change. After 10 years pretty much alone, she meets Floyd Dunn. He's described as charming, smart, seems stable, and they connect. Like really connect. It feels like maybe, just maybe, light is coming back into her life.
He really does seem like the perfect person to pull her forward, doesn't he? But
there's always a but in these stories.
Right, and this but is huge. Laurel meets Floyd's daughter, Poppy. She's 9 years old. And the shock is just instant. Poppy's smart, maybe a bit too grown up acting for her age, but the main thing, the really disturbing thing, she looks so much like Ellie. An uncanny resemblance, the book calls it.
And it's not just, oh, she has the same hair color. The source material makes it feel deeper, like an echo.
Yeah.
But wait, if you've been traumatized for a decade, isn't latching onto a coincidence like that? Isn't that dangerous? A kind of desperate hope.
Oh, extremely dangerous, but also completely understandable, very human. Laurel's focus on Poppy, it stops being just curiosity very quickly. It becomes this consuming need to figure out the connection. Why does this little girl look exactly like her daughter who vanished 10 years ago?
A 9-year-old girl?
Exactly. The timing makes no sense logically, but emotionally, it's the only thing that matters. That mystery becomes the engine driving everything. She has to know.
So Laurel starts digging, right? Trying to understand this impossible resemblance. And the path leads her back not to Floyd initially, but to someone from the time Ellie disappeared. Noelle Donnelly. Who was she? What was her connection?
Noelle Donnelly tutored Ellie in math. But that's just the surface. The book paints her as unsettling right from the start. You know, really eccentric, didn't fit in socially, and crucially, she developed what's called a disturbingly fixated attachment to Ellie.
So not just a tutor. It was already bordering on obsessive before the disappearance.
Yes. A possessive, unhealthy interest was already there. And what's really clever, or maybe chilling, is how her own sort of social awkwardness worked as cover. People saw her as odd, maybe a bit unstable. So when Laurel finds out later that Noelle also disappeared shortly after Ellie did, well, people just shrugged it off.
You just figured she ran away, couldn't cope or something.
Pretty much. Another troubled person vanishing. Nobody connected the dots. Nobody thought to look deeper.
And that assumption that she was just another missing person case, unrelated, that allowed the real horror to stay hidden right under everyone's noses. Okay, this is where it gets really dark. We need to lay out the sequence Laurel eventually uncovers. It connects Noelle, Ellie, Floyd, and Poppy.
Yeah, it's rough. The trigger, the initial motive, seems to be rejection. Noelle had apparently been romantically involved with Floyd, or wanted to be, and he rejected her. So, kidnapping Ellie wasn't random. It seems to have been this twisted act of, well, revenge. Or maybe creating the family she felt Floyd denied her. She wanted Ellie for herself.
She held her captive in the house.
In the basement, yeah. For a significant time, years, it sounds like.
And then, what happened? How did Ellie die?
It wasn't planned, apparently. The source says Ellie tried to escape, there was a struggle, and Noelle accidentally killed her.
Oh, God. So it goes from kidnapping to murder.
Yeah.
Which means the cover-up has to be even more extreme.
Exactly. And this is where Noelle's obsession goes completely off the rails. You'd think maybe she'd hide the body, try to disappear.
But she didn't.
No. She couldn't let go of the idea of Ellie or maybe the control she had, so she did something truly horrifying.
This is the part about Poppy.
Yes. She somehow harvested Ellie's eggs after her death and used them, with Floyd unknowingly being the sperm donor, presumably via previous relationship intimacy or perhaps theft, to conceive Poppy through IVF.
Wait, so Poppy.
Poppy is biologically Ellie's daughter, conceived and carried by Ellie's killer.
The resemblance Laurel saw wasn't just similar features, it was Ellie,
Yeah.
genetically.
Weaponized genetics. It's a level of deception that's almost unthinkable. It explains everything, but in the worst possible way.
And it shifts the whole story, doesn't it? It's not just a crime story anymore, it's about identity, legacy, horror.
Absolutely. And what about Floyd and all this? He wasn't completely ignorant, was he?
No. The source material suggests he found out later. Not everything, maybe, but fragments of the truth. He knew Noelle was involved in Ellie's death and the cover-up.
But he stayed quiet.
He stayed quiet. He couldn't face it. Couldn't face what Noelle was, what she'd done. Maybe couldn't face his own connection to it all.
Which brings us back to that theme of paralysis. His silence made him complicit. It kept Laurel trapped in her unknowing for even longer.
Okay, so pulling these threads together, what does this story ultimately say about dealing with such extreme trauma?
Well, first, let's look at grief and healing again. Laurel's 10 years were hell specifically because she didn't know. Learning the truth is devastating, obviously. Finding out your daughter was murdered, held captive, and then used. It's unimaginable.
But the book seems to argue that even that truth, however horrific, was necessary for any kind of closure.
Yes, because it was concrete. It was an answer. Awful, but final. It allowed grief to finally have an object, rather than just being this shapeless, endless hoping and fearing. Clarity, even brutal clarity, is what she needed to start healing.
And then there's the theme of obsession. Noelle's obsession is destructive, possessive, born from rejection and leading to murder.
But Laurel has an obsession too, right? Her obsession is to find the truth.
Right. It's driven by love and grief, not control. So obsession itself isn't the villain. It's the source of the obsession that matters. Noelle wanted to possess and replace. Laurel wanted understanding and justice.
Laurel's fixation, her inability to let go, was actually what saved her in the end. It forced the truth out.
And maybe the most complex theme, motherhood and identity, all centered on Poppy.
Finding out Poppy is Ellie's biological child. It throws everything into chaos. How do you process that?
This little girl is living proof of the worst imaginable crime against your daughter.
And yet, she is also literally a part of your daughter, a continuation. It forces Laurel to confront this incredibly deep, painful biological tie that even death and malice couldn't completely sever.
It really challenges what family even means in such extreme circumstances.
Yeah.
Can you love this child who embodies both your deepest loss and your only link to what was lost?
It definitely moves beyond a standard thriller. It becomes this really intimate, haunting exploration of psychological survival. How does Laurel even begin to deal with this impossible reality?
So where does that leave Laurel? She has the horrifying truth about Ellie, but she also has Poppy. There's this awful devastation, but maybe, through Poppy, a tiny fragile chance to reconnect, to heal. She has to somehow try and forgive, maybe not Noelle, but forgive life, forgive herself for the lost years, and build something new.
And the core message seems pretty clear.
Yeah.
Secrets and deception, like Noelle's or Floyd's silence, they just destroy everything. They fester. Truth, even the most painful truth imaginable, is ultimately liberating. It hurts, but it sets you free from the prison of not knowing.
So the final thought we leave you with, based on this source.
Yeah, think about this. What does it really mean for identity, for motherhood, for connection, when a child like Poppy exists? Conceived through an act of utter horror, deception, and control. Yet she becomes the one tangible thing that might offer healing, a future, and a connection back to the lost daughter for Laurel. That paradox light emerging from such profound darkness, that's something really worth thinking about long after you finish the story.